The reason most of us can't wean Christians away from idolatrous ideas like human sacrifice and demigod intermediaries is due to the hellfire doctrine that Christianity made up as a failsafe method. Christian authors knew that over time people would discover the discrepancies in the stories, so they had to create psychological holes that became so common that they even passed down by the parents to indoctrinate their children. The thing is, psychological doctrines like hell that are used in the New Testament are nothing more than reworded plagiarisms that are ripped out of context from the Hebrew Bible. In layman's, what I'm trying to explain to you is that the authors of the New Testament used the Hebrew Bible's imagery, parable styles, and wording to give validity to Christian hell doctrines and imagery. If we were reading the Christian Bible in Greek, they would just flat out use the word Hades, while in Judaism, Sheol is just a grave. In the New Testament, Jesus' death is now used as a means to avoid Hades. So Christianity attempts to use the Torah's animal sacrifice system to justify human sacrifice, knowing full well that it would be an abomination. But I can prove everything I'm explaining if people would only read the text properly. But if they did, I wouldn't be making this video. Let's dive in. Zechariah 13, verses 8 and 9 read, "And it shall come to pass that in the land, says the Lord, two parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God." Ezekiel 22, verses 18 through 22. "Therefore I will gather you into the midst of Jerusalem, as they gather silver and brass, and iron and lead and tin into the midst of the furnace, to blow the fire upon it, to melt it. So I will gather you in my anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. Yeah, I will gather you and blow upon you in the fire of my wrath, and you shall be melted in the midst thereof. As silver is melted in the midst of the furnace, so shall ye be melted in the midst thereof, and you shall know that I, the Lord, have poured out my fury upon it." So as you can see, God's fury is a fire that will melt Israel. But do you think God is actually planning on leaving the people as melted brass or iron, or is that a step in refinement? Let's continue. Psalm 66, 10 through 12. "But thou, O God, hast proved us. Thou hast tried us as silver is tried. Thou brought us into his net. Thou laid afflictions upon our loins. Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but thou brought us into a wealthy place." The entire Jewish theme of God, fire, and furnaces being used symbolically implicate how God punishes his people for a time, and then they come out refined. So when we get to the New Testament, Jesus' parables give these lessons a different turn. First, let's go to Matthew 13, where Jesus gives two explanations of two parables, one about weeds and the other about a net. Both end with him saying, "So it will be in the end of the age. The angels will sever the wicked from the just, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. But there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." This imagery leads Christians to envision people crying and gnashing their teeth in anguish, when in reality, that's not even really the context. To prove this, let's go back 5 chapters. In chapter 8, verse 12, it says, "But the subject of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, but there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." No mention of fire or a furnace here. Plus, they never stated that a fire is everlasting. What religious people fail to understand is that parables are not speaking on literal events. They're clever ways to hide a truth or make a truth easier to understand. Even in the New Testament, the parables are about the separation from God. The Christian authors used "thrown in a furnace" because they knew Christian converts had a Greek mindset about Hades and the fiery underworld. So this is why these texts got misunderstood and hell came about. It's even a story in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, verses 19 through 20 through 31, about a poor beggar named Lazarus who died at the same time a rich man died, who Lazarus used to beg for crumbs from his table. So Lazarus dies and goes into Abraham's bosom, while the rich man dies and goes to Hades, where he's tormented. So he cries up from Hades to Abraham and tells him to dip some water on his tomb and to go warn his brethren to be better than he was. But Abraham tells him that they have the words of Moses and the prophets, and if they don't believe them, then they would never believe one coming from the grave. But I guess they didn't know the influence of the modern near-death experiences. Even when the Bible goes against things, people still do it. But the imagery of these parables is why the Christian world developed hell. People aren't even using their common senses to understand if Jesus is saying these things happen at the end of time, then there would be no people in hell at the time. But people don't use logic in most matters of belief. And that's why you all need people like us who are not bound to superstitious beliefs and can actually see the text of what they're intending. Tell everybody.